WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station.
And we're back here, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. 215-204-9449 is the number if you want to hop on board with us. We'll go out to Chicago right now, and we'll welcome in the Nets color analyst for WFAN in New York, and that's Tim Capstraw as the Nets get ready to try to force a Game 7. Tim, it's Zach Gelb, Haley Condon, and John Henry. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Well, thank you for coming on. I was actually reading an article the other day about a horse that you have, Chris and the Capper. Can you just tell us the history about this and how you got your name and Chris Carino's name on a horse?
Well, we were traveling last year with a sponsor, and I was out at having an adult beverage with one of our sponsors, and it just kind of came up. He had told me he had a number of 25 horses or so, and I just kind of brought it up. You know, could you possibly name it, first of all, the Capper after me? I tried to be selfish. He said, no, better Chris and the Capper. But what turned out to be the story about it, he did name the horse, but the story became important because the horse was in this race to Wood Memorial and almost was leading for almost the entire way and almost made it to the Kentucky Derby. That's what made it an interesting story, but it was because of having a beer with a sponsor and being an egomaniac like I am. I wanted to get my name on a horse.
Well, when did you develop that interest in horse racing? Have you always had an interest in horse racing?
I don't know anything about it. I just wanted to go to Saratoga in the summer because I'm from upstate New York and have my buddies know that there was a horse named after me. I know nothing about horse racing. I just wanted my name to be involved somehow so I could get guys betting and interested.
Tim Capstraw joins us on the hotline, Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. Tim does a great job with Chris Carino for the Nets game. The Nets are in action tonight trying to force a Game 7 and send it back to Brooklyn. But, Tim, let me ask you this. Kirk Hinrich, he's been on and off the court this series with injury. Joe Johnson has suffered from plantar fasciitis. Can you give me an update on those two players and their status for tonight's big Game 6?
Well, I know that Joe Johnson will play, although he really is hurting. These guys are hurting, as is Joakim Noah. Both of those guys have plantar fasciitis. I think Kirk Hinrich is an enormous story. I think his ability to play and be relatively effective if he is out there is a huge factor in this game. There's the Bulls pride themselves on great defense, and they are even without him, they're still a really, really good defensive team. But he is at he guards Darren Williams. He's at the point of attack. He sets the tone defensively. He's phenomenal at guarding the basketball and steering the ball in the direction with which the Bulls want it. And Darren Williams really kind of defers to other players at times when Kirk Hinrich is guarding him. When Nate Robinson guards him, I think that he can get into the paint. He can be much more aggressive. He can make plays for himself and others. That injury is important in this game, no doubt about it.
Kirk is the difference maker to me for the Bulls, and it's going to be interesting to see if he goes tonight. But you look at the job that Thibodeau has done with this team. They don't have Derrick Rose. Noah's not in a full percentage of health. They had a bunch of guys who left practice yesterday with some sickness. It's just really remarkable to see the job that he's done with the Chicago Bulls team.
Yeah, I agree, and I think everybody knows that around the NBA right now. There's no doubt about that he is an outstanding coach. They've got a real program going right now. It kind of goes, if there's a player that can't show up and can't be ready, is injured, the next man up kind of philosophy comes into play in Chicago. They've really done a great job establishing that. But I think that P.J. Carlesimo and the Brooklyn Nets have a toughness and a resiliency about them also, and that's what makes this series very compelling.
And one player who's been killing the Nets all series long has been Nate Robinson. If you're PJ, how would you go to stopping Nate Robinson from exploding like he did in that 3 overtime game?
That was amazing. Oh, what an amazing performance by Nate Robinson. I think if you followed his career, you know he is capable of doing that. I think it slows him down a little bit if he has to start and play starters minutes. I thought he wore it down a little bit late in the game. I think the biggest key of all is most of his points come off of high screen and roll with Joakim Noah coming out to set a screen. That puts a lot of pressure on Darren Williams and especially Brook Lopez to make sure they are up and ready to guard Nate Robinson, because unlike a lot of guards that come off pick and roll, a lot of guys come off it, take a couple dribbles, read the situation, and then you can recover defensively. With Nate Robinson, if he gets a step by the screen, the pick, he will be in the shooting motion. So you have to close a lot tighter, a lot sooner on Nate Robinson, and make sure that he doesn't get a step and get an opportunity to shoot the basketball.
A few more questions with Tim Capstraw as he joins us on the hotline. Philly's #1 college radio station, WHIP. And Tim, I've been a Nets fan for my whole life. I watched Brook Lopez grow and develop. Just to see him come into his own this year, it's been an encouraging sign for the Nets, and he really has improved his rebounding game.
He sure has. I mean, he can always score the basketball, and he's gotten a lot more physical in the way he can score. He's a very good perimeter shooter. That helps against the Bulls because you've got to step away at times. Down on the block, he's gotten better. He's gotten more physical, better rebounder, better offensive rebounder. And Zach, I don't know. I think he's over 3 blocks a game in this series. He protects the paint on the defensive side of the floor so much better now. Now, pick and roll, like we just talked about, has a difficult time moving, sideways and being able to defend that. Most 7-footers do, but he is such a good player, and the Nets are really fortunate to have a 7-footer like him to build around, not only in this game, this series, but really the future of the franchise.
And we've talked about how Kirk is the difference maker, Kirk Heinrich is the difference maker for the Bulls, but when I look at the Nets, when guys like Blatch or Gerald Wallace get over 10 points per game, it just seems like it gives the Nets a good chance to win the game, and that's what you have been seeing in this series, Tim.
Exactly. Gerald Wallace especially has become a barometer for the Nets in games 1 where the Nets scored over 100 points, 4 and 5 when they did. It's always Gerald Wallace has been one of those X factors or wild cards who's been able to score the basketball. You are so right, though. Other forwards have contributed, Andre Blatch, and even Chris Humphries in the last game. I think the way that P.J. Carlesimo rotates that power forward and small forward and the big men positions is really important. You've got to balance your minutes. Some guys on the Nets, that law of diminishing returns comes into play when they play too many minutes. I thought the balance was perfect in Game 5. It'd be interesting to see tonight.
There's more pressure on the Nets to win this series. The Bulls, they don't have Derrick Rose. They've been hit with a lot of injuries. But if you had to give me one key tonight for the Nets to force a Game 7, what's that key?
Well, first of all, I think that the pressure now becomes relatively equal because I understand, I agree that the Nets had pressure, but once a team goes up 3-1, I think the pressure can kind of even out, and both teams would feel, I think even the Bulls would figure out that would be a little bit of pressure on them also. I think the biggest key of all is which team is going to get the points in the paint. I think that is really, really a big factor. A terrific Philadelphia coach years ago named John Griffin at St. Joe's used to call the paint the line of scrimmage. And which team wins the line of scrimmage? The Bulls do a great job of protecting the paint. The Nets do an okay job of it. If the Nets can get some easy putbacks, can they get some layups, can they get to the free throw line, can they get points in the paint? Because if it becomes a jump shooting contest, that really works to the Bulls' advantage. That's what they want. That's got to be careful and make sure they get enough baskets in the paint.
Tim Capstraw joins us from his Chicago hotel room. Nets get ready to take on the Bulls tonight, Game 6. You could hear him on WFAN in New York. Tim, I have to ask you this real quickly before we let you run. Jason Collins, he was a former Net. He's helped them go to the NBA Finals, and he's always been a tough player in this league, although it doesn't show on the stat sheet. But he came out the other day, and he's gay. What's been your reaction to Jason Collins?
Well, first of all, like everybody, your initial reaction is, oh, you're surprised. And then you're saying to yourself, well, good for him, proud of him. And if there's someone in the NBA you wanted to be a representative for any kind of cause, for anything, it would be Jason Collins. The way he carries himself, the way he is appreciated by his teammates in the class that he always plays it, and what a great teammate he was, he is, and I had a lot of respect for him, and now I multiply it by about 10.
If I had to define what happened this past week, I would say when I think of Jason Collins, it's courage. That's the first word that comes to mind. And you're right, he is the perfect player to go through this. But does this at all become a distraction in the locker room, or do you see him playing in the NBA next year?
I think, first of all, I don't know if he was a lock to play in the NBA next year anyways. He's kind of in that fizzling out in his career, so that will be interesting. I think among his teammates it won't be a problem at all. I think there will be in arenas where people, when he goes in an away game, there'll be some people yelling in the crowd. But, Jason Collins has had people yell at him and boo him before. He really struggled at the end of his career with the Nets. And, he's just a tough guy. He understands what he's doing, and I think the good certainly is going to outweigh the bad with Jason Collins' situation.
Tim, we appreciate a few minutes. Let's do it again real soon. Thanks so much.
Great job, Jack. Take care.
Tim Capstraw right there. He's calling the Nets game tonight in Chicago and WFAN in New York. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back right after these short messages.